In this video, I'm going to be covering how to create a coupon widget where you can copy the promo code or the coupon. And I've got this in the browser to show you what we're going to be building. Essentially, when you click copy, it's going to display an alert letting you know that that it's been copied, and then you can paste this save 20 to, if you're building a website building project, paste it to, a checkout or, anything that you're working on. So let's get started. And how it's going to work is we have our sandbox. It's going to be empty at the start. We've got sandbox.html, sandbox.css. Those are the files that we're working with today. We've got my notes, for just keeping track of colors, and we've got the final solution. Now, if we get started, we can start with the HTML first, and you essentially do shift tab to add some boilerplate. So we've added that. We can say, this is going to be the copy tutorial to match that up, like so. Copy tutorial in the tab, and then we can add the HTML to start. We're going to use, for this HTML, a div class with promo container. We're going to, within this container, you add, the two elements that we see. We've got a div, and we're going to say div with an ID of promo code, and div with a class of promo dash code. And then we're going to say, save 20. So that's the first element. And then the next element is just going to be a button. And we're going to go into that in more detail later. But we're going to say, a button. And then we're going to say, copy promo code, like so. So save 20, copy promo code. That's exactly what we're doing. So that's it for now. We can go ahead and move this over so we can see what we're doing, and then we can hop into the CSS. Now with the CSS, we're using sandbox.css. It's an external style sheet, so what we're going to want to do is use a link element to refer to that external style sheet, sandbox.css, and we can say the relationship is that it's a style sheet. That's what the rel is. Save, and then we're good to go. We can get started. And we can start with, our CSS reset. It's a box sizing, border box, margin 0, padding 0 to just, neutralize the styles in the browser. You can, find a CSS reset online, but this is, we're just doing a basic one with a universal selector to move forward. The next thing we want to do is we can start with the body. So we want to add over our font family, and we've got that here. We can add this. This is the font family we're using. We're going to use padding of 40 pixels. And then we're going to go ahead and add, a background color. And we can get that background color here, like so. We're going to say display flex justify content center, and that's going to move the two elements in the center of the page, and that's what we want for now. So that's the body. Next, we're working with promo container, and the promo container is going to have a background color of white. It's going to have some padding just for some extra space there. It's a bit tight, so we're going to space that out. We want to curve the corners, so we're going to use border radius, like so. We're going to do box shadow of 8 pixels. Sorry, not border radius is 8 pixels. The box shadow, we have that saved, and we're gonna grab that. Okay, and for box shadow, so for one, what I'm doing is with the CSS, I'm working my way inward with the elements. So we're starting with the outermost universal selector, working our way in the body. Then we're doing the promo container, and then we're working our way in. So you'll see that here: body HTML, promo container. Then we're gonna work on the two elements. So that's how I'm approaching this. The box shadow, I want to mention that, padding, for one, whenever you see something like this, it's 20 pixels top and bottom, 30 pixels left and right. you're going to see versus, here is 40 pixels, top, bottom, left, and right. Then you've got the box shadow. The box shadow is going to be, 0 shadow from left to right, the x-axis, 4 pixels of the y-axis down, and you'll see that here, 4 pixels. And then the 8 pixels is going to be the spread or the radius of the shadow. And then you've got RGBA, we're using 0, 0, 0 for black, and then the opacity is 0.1 for that box shadow. Cool. Then in the promo container, you'll see in the final solution, it's horizontal versus a column. So we want to go ahead and use display flex, justify content, center, align items, center, like so, to put that on the same center left and right, and then align items is centering from top to bottom. Okay, so perfect. The next thing we have is going to be the promo code. So that's going to be here, the actual promo code, the save 20, we're targeting that as a class. So promo code, we're going to say, hey, font weight, we're going to say bold, we're going to say font size of 1.5 rem. The 1.5 rem is essentially, it's taking the font size of the browser, that's going to be that 16 pixels, and then 1.5, so essentially 1.5 times 16, which makes it 24. So 1.5 rem, 24 pixels for the font size here. That's useful. Rem and ems are useful because a lot of your layouts and styles are dependent on the font size often. So it's useful when you shrink maybe the font size, your whole layout's going to adjust as well, which is useful to use if you want to use it for padding or other things to adjust accordingly to the font size. In this case, we're making the font size dependent on the browser of that 16 pixels. Okay, next we want to, you'll see in the final solution that it's spaced out, and so we want to use letter spacing to space out those letters, and we're going to just do 3 pixels to give that spacing. We're going to add some padding to just give some more breathing room, top and bottom, left and right, like so. Okay, and then next we've got the border, and we can get that from here. This is the border we're using for the promo code, the coupon. And then we want to, curve it like in the final solution, and we'll give it, 6 pixels of a curve. We will say user select all. Now for user select all, this is really cool. This is something new. And, essentially what it is, clicking on save 20 is going to highlight it entirely, like so. So it's useful, even though we're doing a copy promo code, it's just a nice little touch to if someone wants to click on it and copy manually, that's what that is. If we remove it, so if we comment this out, you'll notice that, clicking around, nothing happens. So using this user select all is a great way to, give that, a full highlight. Then to, wrap up, we've got background color. We want to give it the slight orangish color that we're using here. So background color, and then cursor, you'll notice, so if we click here, the cursor changes to this highlight option. We don't want that. We want cursor of default, and that's just going to be that default arrow that you see. And so when you hover, you'll see that stays the same. Cool. Okay, so we've done that, and now we can finish off with the button. And so we're going to do button, and we're going to say background color. We're going to grab that as well. Grab the background color. We're going to get rid of the border with border none. We're going to change the text color to white. We're going to add some more space with padding of 10 pixels left and right and 20 pixels, 10 pixels top and bottom and 20 pixels left and right. And then we've got the margin left. Margin left, we're going to make it 1 rem. We're going to, just to, without that, you'll see it's touching and we want to space that out. So essentially I'm just doing margin left, and today I've just decided to do 1 rem. Perfect. Okay, and then we want the font size to be also 1 rem. So that's going to increase there. We can say border radius is going to be 6 pixels. Let's curve that out, the corners. We want to make the cursor, so currently nothing happens when you hover. We want the cursor to be a pointer because it's a button, so we're changing that. And we want to add a transition, so we're going to transition, so the button on hover is going to be background color. We're going to change the background color on hover, and we're going to do that like so. So when we hover, you'll see the color changes. We want to smooth that out, and so we're just adding transition. That transitions that in between from getting from this point A, color orange, background color button, to hover to point B. So point A to point B, transition is the middle point to essentially how to get to there. And we're gonna give it, we want to target the background color. We want to make it 0.3 or 300 milliseconds, and then we use ease as the timing function. And so now it'll be a little bit smoother. Cool. Okay. And then we can shrink that a bit more. Let's make this a bit bigger. Okay. So great. So we've got this now. Now that we've done that, we can go, so we've done pretty much, let's fix this to be capital, save 20. Okay, so now it's identical. Now the final step is the JavaScript. So we've got the HTML, we've got the CSS. We just want to add the JavaScript to trigger that alert and also get the coupon to copy, and get this, save 20 that we just copied to add. So how we're going to do that is we're going to do inline JavaScript. So you can use external sheet or scripts and an external sheet for JavaScript, but in this case we're just doing inline, same as like inline styles. It's just a little bit different. So we're going to say on click for the button, we're going to say the following, and we're going to work on this. So we're going to say the window, and then we're going to go in more detail about what exactly all of this means. So window.navigator, clipboard, write text. Then we're going to say window.document.get element by ID, and we're going to say we're going to get the element by ID, which is that promo code. Get element by ID dot inner text, and then we're going to say, we're going to say inner text, and then we're going to say dot then use an arrow function, window.alert. We're going to say promo copied, and then we're going to say dot catch. We're going to say window.alert failed to copy, like so. And then we're going to finish that off with this. Oop. Okay, like so. Okay. And then we'll say, yeah. Okay, and then there we go. Okay, so we added the button. Now you'll see that was copied. and paste. Okay, so cool. We've got it to work. Now let's, break down and go into more detail, how this actually works. So a couple things here with, our solution that I want to kind of discuss. So essentially, let's expand this. You have in the browser here, this is the window. You have the window object, which is, essentially everything below, the search bar, really, you can say. So the viewport, when you're scrolling through, a page, that whole window that you can see from like corner to corner here is going to be the window. So that is considered in JavaScript an object. Within the window object, you have other objects and you have properties of this special window that have, essentially the object window has special features. You have the navigator, which is, another object. So it's an object within object, but it's just a property. So you can see here, property, navigator. You've got also the other property, window dot document. So these are all, children you can think of the window object. So you've got window dot navigator is a child of window, document is a child of window in a way. And it is a property that's an object that contains, and these objects contain, special abilities, you can say, special benefits. So for one, let's start with the easy one here. So these special abilities you can think of as functions or methods is the more specific term. They're called methods. And the window has a special ability of alert. And so this is built into the browser. This alert is, we're saying, promo copy, or if a fail happens, we're saying failed to copy. So that's the special ability of window. We've got navigator and we've got document. Those are both objects that contain their own special abilities as children. Think of, kind of like superheroes. You've got the window superhero as the parent, maybe like the Incredibles, I guess. You've got the window, you got the children, the navigator, the document, they have their own special abilities. You've got the clipboard, which is another object that's essentially a grandchild of window. That's its own, special abilities, and that special ability is writing text, which is similar to, Control C on your keyboard in a way. It's copying the text. The alternative, Control V or Command V, is pasting, and that's going to be read text. So that this is a method. This is a special ability of the clipboard object, which is a grandchild of the window object. And to get down to these children, you're using the period in between, and that's what you're seeing there. Methods you are wrapping, in parentheses, so you have to put something in it, and so that's what we're doing here. Promo copied, we're putting in the alert method. Failed to copy, we're putting in the alert method again, and then write text has its own parentheses, and we're putting in an additional action that we want to perform. We're saying, hey, copy. We're trying to get, we want to copy. What do we want to copy? Well, we want to copy the element with the ID of promo code. And just grab the inner text, the text that we can see in the browser. That's what that is. And so we're grabbing in the inner text, and that's most of it. And then you've got this special JavaScript we're using on click. We're saying button on click, and we're performing this action, and we're wrapping it in quotes like so. Where we are using single quotes within, because we can't use you can use double quotes or single quotes in JavaScript, generally just being consistent, but because we're using double quotes on the outside, we're not able to, it's going to give us an error if we try to use double quotes like so. It can't process what's going on. So to make it clean, we're using single quotes on the inner side, double quotes on the outer side. And so that's how it's working. We're using on click so we're using some JavaScript on click. We're capturing elements from the browser. In this case, we're capturing the promo code. We're copying the text the same way, you can use Control C. And we're using, the method write text to do that. And then this part here is, part of what's called a promise. There is a, in JavaScript, there's a promise object. This is, essentially a promise is going to be an object that's either going to provide a success or it's going to provide a failure in the future. So it's not, it's not immediate. It's going to be, in the future, we want to copy this. So when this action happens of clicking the button here, when we click the button, we're triggering, a promise object, and it's going to give us a success or failure. And so that's why, we're using a combination of .then and .catch, which are both methods of the promise object. So do you see the connection? There are methods to objects. Objects hold these, actions, these special abilities, and you've got all sorts of types of that in JavaScript. And so that's what we're using here. We're using the window object, the navigator object, the clipboard object, the promise object, and the document object, all here. And you've got, get element by IDs, a special method for document. And so that's essentially all of it. It's just a collection of objects and methods and properties that we're using to, make this happen. And so that is everything today. We use, to recap, essentially, you've got the navigator, which is the built-in, browser object to, provide extra functionality to the browser, the, window and navigator. The clipboard is a property of navigator, and the clipboard's value happens to, it's just also an object. And, clipboard contains that method. So clipboard contains a method of write text that we're seeing here, which behaves like, copying text with Control-C. We're just, doing it directly. And so that's what we did today to get this working. Just a little, intro to JavaScript, intro to, again, we're touching on HTML and CSS, but starting to get into more advanced stuff. So that's all for today. I appreciate you watching, and have a great day.